Okay, folks, Andrew Bulbros here. As promised, I'm going to talk about the defense as well and some potential cuts we could see going into the 2025 season. I think this list is going to be pretty interesting. But again, we had a great defense last year. As you all know, we number one defense most of the year. In fact, I think we ended up number one defense in a lot points allowed, number one scoring defense for sure. So there's a lot to discuss about how this defense is going to improve this next season. And I do think we're going to be even better than we were last year. But I think some of these cuts are going to be pretty interesting. I want to hear your thoughts on them. Am I right? Am I wrong? Leave a comment down below. So as always, let's get into it. Okay, folks, as always, like and subscribe if you do enjoy the content. Again, Andrew Bulbros. So let's talk about the defense. And you might be saying, well, Scott Matlock, what are we talking about here? I mean, he's not going anywhere. He's not going to be a cut. Of course, he's not a cut. I think the question really remains whether or not he's going to continue playing both positions, right? I did a talk about Steve Klotz on Monday, potentially being the fullback that would take over the fullback duties, and then Matlock would just go back to being defensive lineman. I don't think that happens. I'm putting Matlock up here just because I think he's most likely still going to play fullback and most likely defensive lineman. But you could tuck Klotz away on the practice squad and have him just be a fullback and go from there. And then if, heaven forbid, Matlock does get hurt, you could bring up Klotz as a starting fullback, right? So you have to elevate him from that point on. But Matlock does also give you an opportunity to most likely there is going to be someone that's going to be removed from the team. So the cut that I think is going to happen most likely is Steve Hinton or Chris Hinton, not Steve. What am I saying? It's Christopher Hinton. Christopher Hinton was actually cut a few times last year. Anyways, I don't know that he stays on this team. Again, he was waived in 2024, signed in 2025 at camp. Look, I just truly believe he's got to show that he deserves a roster spot. Now, again, when we look at this defensive line, guys, everyone is rambling on about how our defensive line is super thin. I don't think we are. Look, when Poona Ford came to our team, everyone thought, oh, he's not going to be that great. He's not awesome, blah, blah, blah. I heard it all. I remember very, very clearly how many people said Poona Ford's not the answer. Well, he got a huge bag signing with the Rams. So, we signed people like, guess what? We signed Delshawn Hand, Naquan Jones. I think both those guys are going to be very good. And we got Tierra Tart back. So, and then Jamaree Caldwell as a rookie, I think it's going to do very well for us. So I do think that no matter what, we're going to be fine. I think we start 6 or 7 defensive linemen for the season. And again, it really is going to boil down to whether or not you're going to have Scott Matlock run as a fullback. I would think he'll probably be there. So I think we start 6 or 7. In the 53-man roster. But again, Justin Aboigbe apparently has looked really good in camp. A lot of people really like him. He put on some weight, looks good. Again, if people are sleeping on Delshawn Hand and Naquan Jones, I think they're both going to be great. And Tierra Tart, guys, if he is motivated and can play up to his level, he's going to be fine. So I feel very confident. So unfortunately for Christopher Hinton and maybe even some of the other rookies, we have some other folks that I'm not really going to talk about today, but I think Christopher Hinton might not make this squad. Again, he could get tucked away in the practice squad. We shall see. But it'll also depend on some of these undrafted free agents. You could sign those undrafted free agents for less money than Christopher Hinton. So Christopher Hinton needs to beat out these undrafted free agents to continue to stay on this team. So we'll see what happens moving forward. And again, he's going to have a lot of opportunities to show what he can do in these preseason games as well, too. So let's talk about the linebacker room for a second. You might say, well, Andrew, Troy Dye signed. Why would you think we would let him go? We're not going to let Troy Dye go. Troy Dye is a very good special teams player, but, with Troy Dye coming back, again, we lost Nick Niemann to a big contract, drawing a blank on the team that he signed with. But bottom line, Nick Niemann gone, Troy Dye is going to be stepping into that role in special teams and being a backup linebacker. Now, another guy that's going to be pretty interesting, too, is Del'Shawn Phillips, which, again, I do think Del'Shawn Phillips would be interesting because, look, I think him getting signed, obviously, this defense knows him from his time with the Ravens. See the picture here right now. He's a good special teams player as well. I think he is really going to be another guy that's really going to have to, show that he's going to earn a spot in special teams. I don't know if he stays on, but I think we signed him from the Texans, if I remember correctly. Uh, Again, very good player. Now, the other guy that could potentially, I think it's really a battle between Delshon Phillips and our boy right here that came over from the Raiders. Kind of, I don't know if it's right. Kana'i Mauga, right? Now, he is there, and he replaced Jamaree Jean-Baptiste for the most part. Jamaree Jean-Baptiste, I believe, is still on the squad, but he's a depth linebacker whose really spot is going to be hinging on special teams. So Delshon Phillips and Mauga are really going to be fighting for that final special team spot. Troy Dye is going to make the squad. We all know it. Again, look at the roster we have in our linebacker crew. Deion Henley, Tuli Tuipulotu, Nick Niemann, Troy Dye, Denzel Perriman. And again, Tuli's obviously an edge rusher as well, too. But he's also a special teams contributor, which will not be playing special teams this year. So I actually think that both of these guys could potentially make the squad. And Troy Dye, will probably play special teams as well. He'll be taking that Nick Niemann spot as well, too. But again, Denzel Perriman, again, has had injuries. You know that. I know that. So I could see one or two of these guys, making the squad. Who knows? Again, their job is to beat out the undrafted free agents that we have scooped up. And there are a few there that we could discuss as well, too. But if they can beat those folks out, then they'll make the squad moving forward, probably be tucked away on practice squad. I don't suspect Mauga or even Delshon will most likely be scooped up if you put him down as a practice squad type of player. But I do think there's some newly signed linebackers like Shaq Quarterman has looked okay, I guess. We'll see, but we signed him. Anyways, again, some of the undrafted free agents we have, they need to beat them. So we'll see how that plays out. But I'm expecting a lot from our linebacker crew this year. Look, Deion Henley. We also know Junior Colson's going to be healthy this season. And I think those two guys are really going to be the dynamic duo for a long time. Batman or Robin, whatever you want to say. I think they're going to be pretty good. So again, these guys are going to have to fight for those spots to beat those rookies that are there. So I'm showing R.J. Mickens here, and he's a defensive back. So let's talk about defensive backs. And one of the things I like about what we did this year, you got R.J. Mickens and you got Chikwueze Bridges. I think both were drafted in the 7th round. R.J. Mickens is making a lot of splashes in camp so far. Now, again, it's the Underwear Olympics. You're not really evaluating them, what they could do. They don't have pads on. You know that. I know that. But a lot of people are saying R.J. Mickens has looked very good. He's a 7th-round draft pick. Most likely will make the squad. Chikwueze Bridges, 7th-round draft pick. Most likely will make the squad because they're draft picks. They usually want to at least give them a year. Now, we've got a lot of undrafted free agents, but there's a couple people that might be overshadowed by R.J. Mickens because R.J. Mickens has actually looked very good. And Chikwueze Bridges has actually looked pretty good. And a lot of people didn't really know. And I made this blanket statement in a video probably 2 months ago when I talked about these guys, is that the reality is this, is the R.J. Mickens and Chikwueze Bridges both have kind of a unique skill set, right? Because they really run safety, linebacker, or not linebackers, but they run a lot of different positions. So they were a little bit hard to evaluate. You're not a pure cornerback. You're not a pure safety. You're a little bit of everything. But that's really what the Chargers want moving forward. You know that Jesse Minter likes to cross-train our defensive backs. That's why they call them defensive backs. They're not just listed as safety in most cases. I mean, some are. But my point is, if you can be a not just a one-trick pony, you're going to be a lot better off in the NFL, and especially with this team to make the squad. So let's talk about some people that might potentially be cut this 2025 season on the defensive side of the ball. First one that kind of breaks my heart is Tony Jefferson. He's the elder statesman. 11 years in the league, folks. Took some time off, came back, did a great job. Now, I don't think he's going to get cut. I really don't. I think now, Tony, you can probably easily tuck him away on the practice squad, most likely, and you'd be okay. But Tony, man, I just think the veteran presence he offers is going to be huge. And again, that's what we did last year. We tucked away on the practice squad. He was fine. So I think you can easily put him on the practice squad and you'd be okay. I do not think making 53-man roster might not, practice squad for sure. Whether a team scoops him up once they put him in the practice squad, we'll have to see how that goes. But I think Tony Jefferson makes the squad one way or the other. Obviously practice squad, but not 53-man roster. Now, another guy is Dean Leonard. Now, Dean's an interesting one for me because if you recall last year, I think it was last year or the year before, Someone asked Derwin James, who's one of the fastest guys on the team. He said Dean Leonard. Dean Leonard is incredibly quick. He went to Ole Miss, and he's a very good special teams player. So if Dean makes this squad, it's largely because he's done a great job in special teams. Now, again, Jaquizzi Bridges and R.J. Mickens, if they outplay Dean Leonard in special teams, then Dean Leonard most likely will just be on the practice squad and not make the 53-man roster. I do think Jaquizzi Bridges and R.J. Mickens most likely will, just because they're a draft pick. We'll see how it plays out, right? You probably could try and tuck them away on this practice squad. Again, it's a gamble. Again, any team can scoop them up if you put them on the 53-man or the practice squad. There is an open window where you could potentially grab them. But I think Dean Leonard really has, I think he's been with the team for 4 years now, if I remember correctly. But Dean is a great special teams player. I'm excited to see what he can do. I think he'll be fine, but, we'll see how it plays out. But 53-man roster, what do you guys think? Does he make it? Does he not make it? Again, it's going to boil down to these two rookies. R.J. Mickens is going to be huge. A lot of people are talking about him moving forward. Now, the last guy I want to talk about is Ja'Sir Taylor. Now, Ja'Sir Taylor, everyone was banged up on him. Everyone's like, Ja'Sir Taylor sucks, blah, blah, blah. Look, he had a major injury, a broken leg. He suffered week 2. I was at that game, by the way, and he had a broken leg, and he still played through it as best he could. That is very difficult to do that. But look, Ja'Sir Taylor is really that guy. I think he's looked great. And a lot of people in the coaching staff have said that he has absolutely looked incredible this season. So, again, we'll see how it plays out. You're going to see a lot of him in the preseason games. And these are the guys that are going to have to show what they can do. And Ja'Sir Taylor, again, he got burned quite a bit last year, in the slot. But, look, I think he could do the job. So we'll see how that plays out. But again, I think the two major guys, the three guys we need to walk out is for Tony Jefferson, age, obviously Ja'Sir Taylor, and then Dean Leonard. I think those three guys could potentially get cut, depending on how Raheem, R.J. Mickens, and again Jaquizzi Bridges play out. Really, do they step up and be the rookies that they think they can be? So again, this is just my general take on this. What are you guys' thoughts? Are there other people that I'm missing? Again, I'm really not going to be – I don't think a lot of the undrafted free agents on the defensive side of the ball have a real shot, and I would have mentioned it if they did. But I think we're really deep on defenses, so it's going to be a little tough for those guys to make the squad. But, again, it's going to give them an opportunity to shine, right? I mean, these preseason games are going to be absolutely huge for these guys to show up. If they show up and show out, then we'll see what happens. Maybe they make the squad, or don't make our team, but make another team somewhere else. So, interesting thing. What do you guys think? Is this a good list, bad list? As always, leave a comment down below. Andrew Bopros, see you guys in the next one.
Hey, what's up? Cameron Dick here watching Bolt Bros podcast. Let's go.
Charged up, Bolt Bros on the night. LA Thunder in electric delight. Bolts in the battle, sparking bright. Charged up, ride the lightning, feel the fright.